why did you leave Corus?
So let's rewind a little bit. Gurney and I start in 2016, right?
Yep.
Our first show, second show, it was like time to the U.S. election. Okay. So
Sure.
Gurney and I walk in and we keep getting these weird emails about, why aren't we talking about John Podesta and pizza? Why aren't we talking about Hillary Clinton and pizza? Why aren't we talking about the Democrats' connection to pedophilia and pizza? And we're like, what the fuck are all these emails? This is so bizarre.
Yeah.
We would later find out, of course, that they were referencing Pizzagate, which is where this guy went to a pizza parlor in D.C. under the guise of there being children there held by high-ranking Democrats in the basement of this pizzeria that didn't have a basement. He shows up.
It's like the Alamo.
Yeah, he shows up armed, full with guns, is arrested, whatever. And since then, Pizzagate has become like, a well-known conspiracy theory.
Is that like a QAnon thing?
Sort of. I think that's where QAnon kind of molded into afterwards. Yeah. And so that was the first iteration, but it was very clear for both Gurney and I, and then eventually Stafford and I, that there was just a bunch of demonstrably false stuff that was being said on the station. And in a Canadian context, a few examples of this would be, there was a motion to condemn Islamophobia, a very anodyne motion, nothing super controversial. Again, a motion, not a bill, but hosts on the station, as well as contributors on the station, were, kept calling it a bill and kept saying it was going to criminalize any criticism of Islam, which is bonkers crazy, okay?
Right.
And there's a bunch of examples like this, like the UN Global Compact on Migration is another one, which, again, a very anodyne, multilateral document that's signed by a bunch of countries, ends up being described on air as, a commitment that Canada would no longer control its borders, and our immigration targets were going to be set by a global government at the UN. And, we now know, and Politico has reported on this extensively, that that iteration of that conspiracy theory started out on like neo-Nazi message boards in Western Europe and kind of evolved to that. So there were a bunch of these points where whenever it was in the news cycle about like, Muslims, immigrants, indigenous folks, Black Lives Matter later on, sure, even Pride, my personal hate mail would spike. And that's fine. I have a tough skin. I have a thick skin. You can come at me all you want. There were a few moments throughout my time at AM 640 where it would have been a little bit more, quite frankly, scary. Gurney used to have to walk me in and out of the building for about a 2-week period.
Wow.
There was another period where my husband was away for work and wasn't, because he would drive, when things would get really rough, he would drive me in, watch me walk into the building, and then pick me up, watch me walk out. And he wasn't going to be there. So Nathan, the station manager, got me taxi chits to make sure that I wasn't going to be going in and out of the garage by myself at that time, because there was a real worry. Like,
you were receiving threats?
Yeah. Like very detailed rape and death threats. So we're not talking like, shut the fuck up, you dumb cunt. Like, it's like, shut the fuck up, I'm going to rape you with 4 other men in the Corus garage at 4:30 in the morning because we know when you pull in, it's empty.
Wow.
So like very specific. And this is what I think folks don't tend to realize, is that it's not mean tweets. It's not mean comments. It's a specific threat. And I know how to differentiate between the two. Like I used to have on my desktop, it would go threats. It was a folder on my desktop, and then it would go rape as one and then death as the other. And then threats would be like generic, no actionable item, where it's just like, you deserve to be raped. That's not a threat. That's saying I deserve to be raped. Sure, fine. But that's not like in terms of legality and in terms of, what I can action on that, I can't action anything on that. So this happened a bunch of times. I went to station management a bunch. And Gurney went to them and Stafford went to them. Both co-hosts had my back 100% throughout all of it. Station management, for whatever reason, didn't take any of what any of us had said super seriously. I think they thought they were, but, materially nothing had really, or substantively nothing had changed. And then fast forward to I come back from mat leave and I get a very particular gross threat targeting my then infant daughter, talking about how a raping that would, affect her would mean a much bloodier vagina than anybody who was of age.
It's horrible.
And I received that, right, because you log into the morning show, and again, this is during COVID, so I'm doing it from home. Greg Brady's in studio with Shaggy Dave as the board op. Heather and I are both working remotely, and we would all converge onto this Google Doc in the morning at like 4:30 in the morning to go over topics and whatever. And Heather, so I opened my inbox. It was sent to me overnight, and I wasn't responding on the Google Doc. So Heather texts me, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I just need a minute. Tell Dave I need 30 seconds to pad me before we go." Because I needed to collect myself. Like I couldn't, I had these words and I was like, what the fuck am I even reading? So they patted me. Everything was good. I did the show. I finished the show. I go into my bedroom and I cried because I was like, this is really messed up. I tell my husband and he's like, okay, like any man, like, and I say this with love again, is like, well, let me read it. Like, are you sure it was maybe, just because they invoked her, it was like, is more, emotional for you, whatever. He reads it and he's like, oh no, fuck, there's no gray area there. That is 100% a rape threat against our infant daughter. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I was like, are you okay if I quit and I don't bring in that sweet, sweet morning show money anymore or whatever else? And he was like, do what you have to do. Like, this is not, you shouldn't have to do this, especially after you've given them, 4, 5, 6 formal complaints about this, all logged with HR. And that's when I decided I was going to leave because I didn't want to be in a situation. It's one thing if I have to look over my shoulder when I'm at the grocery store or when I'm at a bar or out or whatever. It was a completely different thing to me to consider walking my daughter in her stroller or like pushing her on a swing and always having to look over my shoulder if there was somebody there or like what was happening.